seriously is the fluffiest, lightest bread and so easy to achieve. So I'm just going to take a little bit of sugar from the recipe amount and add it to the warm water, mix that in, and then add the yeast and mix that into the water. And you want to leave it for about 10 minutes. So I've left this for 10 minutes, and as you can see, it's really frothed up, which is a good sign, and it shows that the yeast is active. So here I've got some strong white flour, and to that I'm going to add the salt and the sugar. And then use my de-scraper just to mix it in, and you can obviously do this by hand. And then I'm going to kind of create a sort of well shape. So firstly the oil, and then the yeast water mix. And then I'm going to combine the ingredients. So I'm going to scrunch the dough together and start kneading it in the bowl until it all comes together. And then I can transfer it onto the surface. This is where the arm workout happens. I'm going to knead this for about 5 minutes. Now kneading develops the gluten, but I'm also making the dough smoother. And I'm just repeating the same action over and over again by pushing the dough away with the heel of my hand and then bringing it back into itself. Now as you can see, the dough is a lot smoother than it started out. And I like to test if the dough is ready by bringing it into a ball and then pressing my thumb into the dough, and then if it springs up, it means it's ready to leave to rise. And I think this can just do with a couple more turns and then form it into a ball. So I'm going to place the dough in a lightly floured bowl and then going to cover it with a tea towel and leave it somewhere warm for it to rise, and this should take about 45 minutes. So as you can see, the dough has really risen, which is an amazing sign. And now I'm going to do something very satisfying, and it's called knocking it back. So I'm just going to almost punch the dough and knock out the air. Now this is going to get rid of those big air bubbles that the yeast has produced and make the texture of the dough more even. And then going to turn it back onto the surface, knock it back a little bit more, and then bring it back into one ball of dough. And the shape that I'm going to make is really easy, really doable, and still looks really effective. For this I'm going to need 4 pieces of dough. So using my de-scraper, I'm going to cut this ball of dough in half and then cut those halves in half again. So I've got 4 pieces of dough here, and I'm just going to move them to the side and take the first piece and roll it into a really long sausage shape. So to roll it evenly, I start from the middle and then go backwards and forwards, and as I'm going backwards and forwards, I'm going to bring my hands apart, and that's going to lengthen the piece of dough. And use that length as a guide for the other pieces, and do exactly the same until I have 4 long pieces of dough, all in similar lengths. So to make this shape, I'm going to start off with 2 pieces of dough horizontally quite close to each other, and then lay the other 2 vertically across these 2 pieces. I'm then going to almost weave these pieces of dough. So I'm going to lift one strand up and then put the strand from underneath over the top. And do the same in the opposite corner. So each strand has got an over and an under joint, if that makes sense. I'm then going to take the strand that's underneath and fold it over the strand next to it. And repeat by going round every strand. So I'm basically overlapping the strands every time. And then once I've done the 4 and gone back to where I've started, I'm then going to take the other strand that is now underneath and fold it back onto the strands that we just moved. So as you can see, every time I'm overlapping a strand. And you can start to see this twisted formation take place in the center. And you basically want to repeat this until there's no strands left to fold. And at the very end, I'm just going to tuck them under, and that neatens out the edges and get a rounder shape. I'm then going to transfer the challah onto a baking tray lined with baking parchment, and then just go around the edges and just neaten up the sides again by tucking the excess dough underneath. I'm then going to cover this once again with a tea towel and leave it for another 45 minutes. So you can see how much larger the dough is now. Now if you did want to keep the challah vegan, then you don't need to egg wash it. You can go ahead and just put this directly in the oven. But I do want quite a nice shine on it, and you achieve that by egg washing it. And then I'm going to go over with some sesame seeds. And now it's ready for the oven. So I've preheated the oven to 180 degrees Celsius, and this is going to cook for about 30 to 40 minutes. So the challah is ready. It looks beautiful. It's got a lovely golden brown colour, and the egg wash has created a lovely shine on it, and the kitchen smells unbelievable. A good way of testing if it's baked as well is by picking it up and kind of tap on the bottom, and it will sound hollow. Just careful, because obviously the challah is hot. So I'm just going to leave it to cool completely before transferring it onto a board to serve. And just to show you what the inside is like, I'm going to tear a piece off. And it seriously is the fluffiest, lightest bread, and so easy to achieve. So this can be enjoyed on its own or with dips, however you like to serve it. You can also make the shapes into smaller rolls. It doesn't have to be one whole loaf. This is obviously just traditional. So please try it out, give it a go. I promise you, you won't regret it.